Hello, and welcome to Engaging with Empathy, Supporting Others with Authentic Compassion. My name is Dr. David Palmer, and I am the founder and director of Inclusion Matters Education Services, as well as a teacher and special educator with over 30 years in the classroom and in administration. And I want to stop and say thank you and count it a privilege to be able to talk with you during this webinar as we engage with empathy. And so there's three things I would like for us to get out of this time together. First, that we would understand what empathy is. Second, with that understanding, we would be able to develop a greater capacity for empathy. And then with that understanding and greater capacity, we can apply, put to action the principles of empathy in our work. And so let's get started. I want to start out with the power of empathy. And I want to use a head, heart, hands model. First, I want us to think about empathy from the head perspective, which is the ability for us to step into the shoes of someone else and authentically understand how they are feeling and why. That authentic understanding is so important because that leads us from the head to the heart. And so empathy from the perspective of the heart is the ability to tune into the emotions of others and to take them in and still remain grounded in your own identity. So we have our understanding in our head, we have the attuned heart to the emotions of others, and then comes the hands, where it's about having that greater sense of concern for how they are feeling and then being able to respond. There it is, being able to respond to them on that personal level. It's a lot different from sympathy. Sympathy can involve feeling compassion for or desiring to help someone else, but it doesn't always involve this sense of understanding the perspective and stepping into the shoes of someone else and sharing with their emotions. And so sometimes we think of sympathy as pity. We can have pity towards someone. We can look at them in their state and feel sorry for them. But empathy is something that's far more powerful because empathy requires connection. And I want to give you an example of this. From my experience as a teacher, I want to share with you the story of Alex. Alex is 8 years old. Alex is in third grade. And Alex has been at a new school for a few months. And he's been demonstrating a lot of behavioral challenges. He's disrespectful and doesn't listen to the teacher. He is often bothering other students in the class. He's not getting his schoolwork in, gets up and out of his seat quite often. And so he is constantly reprimanded. And Alex spends a lot of time, even in his first few weeks at this new school, sitting in the office, talking to the assistant principal, even getting to the point where he's having to go home and be suspended because of his behavior. But one day when Alex is in your class, you decide to take a different approach, an empathetic approach. And so what you do is, instead of standing over him and speaking harshly to him, you enter into his space at eye level with a calm voice. And you begin to ask him, Alex, what's going on? What seems to be bothering you today? How can I help you? That then begins to open this conversation. And as you and Alex begin to share, he tells you his parents have been quite busy with work, so they hardly spend any time with him when he's at home. He gets these feelings of loneliness as even his older brother is now going to a different school and he misses being with him. And then he's having a hard time making new friends. And so you understand, head, a little better how Alex is feeling. And then you acknowledge and enter into his feelings. You let your heart open up to Alex and you begin to speak to him from your heart. Alex, I know it must be tough to feel so lonely right now, especially here in this new school. And I know that you miss your friends, and you know what? It's okay. And it's okay to feel sad about it. I've felt sad about it when I've had to leave some of my friends. But I know that you have the opportunity here to build good relationships with your classmates. And so Can we think of some ways that you can express your feelings in more positive ways? Things that you can even do inside the classroom that would help you not only with your friendships, but also help you engage in my lessons and learn and enjoy that learning. But you don't leave it there. It's going to take continued empathy. It's going to take continued care and continually sharing new skills with Alex so Alex can continue to grow and flourish. The power of empathy. I came across a few quotes this last week, one from the Journal of Cogent Psychology that said, empathy is one of the most consistent outcome predictors in contemporary psychotherapy research. And I love this statement here. The therapist's ability to identify and relate to patients' experiences is considered to be the key element of successful psychotherapy process. In other words, we have to show empathy, and empathy matters, and empathy makes a difference. Whether in the clinical setting or in the school setting, as we see from understood.org, empathy is also a powerful tool to help you understand what's behind behavior. We've got to get beyond behaviors. It can help you and your child work together as a team to handle challenges as they come up. I like that idea of teamwork. And it can even help you connect. There's that connection during those difficult moments. There is great power in empathy. And I want you to understand not only what empathy is, but the power that it contains. So to sum it up, empathy is the capacity to understand, resonate with the emotions and experiences of others while maintaining our own emotional equilibrium. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But this understanding and emotional resonance, I like that term, to resonate, can inform what? Our action, our hands and responses, leading to more effective and compassionate interactions with others. Now, how do we nurture this empathy in our lives? Well, I think there's three key things we need to remember. The first is self-care. We need to be taking care of ourselves. We need to be showing empathy to ourselves. We can't do it all. And so often when we engage in helping others, it takes up so much of our time that we neglect to take care of ourselves. It's the oxygen mask principle. When you're on the airplane, put your mask on first, then you're able to turn and help others. And the same is true with empathy. And also maintaining those emotional boundaries. Again, we can enter in, but we have to make sure that we are keeping those boundaries, as we saw in some of those definitions, because those are healthy, not only for us, but for those we are helping. And then we need to be aware of the risks. As we nurture empathy, we need to be aware when we are becoming overwhelmed and how easy it is to be overwhelmed when we're entering into the shoes of other people. We also need to be aware of our own biases, especially empathy bias, meaning that we can easily enter into empathy with those who are going through similar things like we have gone through. Or we see people who we feel might be more worthy of our empathy. So we need to be careful of that. And then we need to be careful while showing empathy that we're not enabling unhealthy habits and behaviors in ourselves and in others. So we need to nurture this empathy, but we have to do it with caution and to do it carefully and for our own health and the health of others. So what are some tools for practical empathetic engagement? And I chose the acronym PLACE because really what empathy is when we enter into the place of another person. We enter into their shoes. And so I took that acronym to give us 5 simple tools when we're engaging with others with empathy. The first is very important. It is to put aside our bias and our prejudice. We talked a little bit about this with empathy bias, but we need to be careful that we don't become the ultimate judges of who gets empathy and who doesn't, and what kind of empathy and action a person needs. We can think, oh, I think they need that. Or because they're in this situation, this is what they need. We need to be careful and put all of those first and foremost to the side. And then we can listen with our head, our heart, and our hands. Then we're in a place where we can actually hear people. And when I say listen, it's not just hearing their words and formulating a response, but it's listening to hear what their understanding of themselves and their situation is, what's in their heart, and why they are doing what they are doing. And then we're listening with our heads, we're listening with our heart, and we're listening with our hands, particularly our body language. Connection means that we're not just sitting there and then looking at our watch or checking our phone, but we're connecting, we're engaging. That person knows that we are present with them in the moment. We need to ask authentic questions, not just questions that we want to know so we can give our answer, not questions that the other might already know the answer to. But it's investigating to understand more about what's going on under the surface, their thoughts, their ideas, their preconceived notions, their feelings, where they're feeling it, so on. And then we concentrate on their strengths for supports. We often come at this at a deficit model, looking at what's wrong with somebody, but I like to come at a strength-based approach, which is I can look at the strengths of that person and encourage them in those strengths while I'm giving them some suggestions for supports that might help them in that moment. And then again, entering in and engaging, connecting with their experience. So let's put this back into the context of Alex. So if I'm Alex's teacher, I'm going to have to put aside any prejudices and bias that Alex is a bad kid, or he has bad parents that don't take care of him, or that he needs to be disciplined more, or all the other preconceived notion I might have or the culture might have about Alex. And then as I'm engaging with him, I'm listening to his whole self with my whole self. Again, head, heart, hands. And I'm asking, Alex, is something, what's bothering you? How can I help? But also positive questions. What are some things you enjoy doing? Figuring out those strengths so I can connect with them on those strengths, and that see what those strengths are in him, knowing that he loves connecting with others. He loves being in others' company. He has a great sense of humor. And then teaching him how to have empathy and care for himself. And then entering in and engaging with him with this bottom up to top down approach in which we build connection and he feels that genuine sense of belonging. And then I'm able to give him the tips and the strategy he needs to engage more with his friends and in class so he can thrive and flourish. And it doesn't just affect Alex. It affects everyone around Alex. And for us, in terms of big systems, it can help us affect and change our healthcare system, our school systems, our workplaces, and our communities. And so what I want you to do is I want you to consider, how can I embrace this power of empathy so that I can support others with authentic compassion? And then I want you to plan. I want you to actually put pen to paper. How am I going to apply some of these tools and insights that I've shared with you today? And then I want you to reflect on how empathy can be bigger. How can it affect your community? How can it affect those around you? And then just practice it every day in your interactions with others. It doesn't have to be just in clinical or in educational settings. It could be at the grocery store or with the next door neighbor. And so I want to thank you for considering all of this. I want to thank you for the opportunity that I've had to share with you. I know that for me, empathy has made a big difference. As I've been shown empathy, empathy has grown in me and has driven me to dedicate my life to showing that kind of empathy to others. Be well, and thank you.